Okay, go.
Forgiving the unforgivable.
Okay. This topic is important to our group because both Abby and I are majoring in education. Abby's in middle school, or middle childhood, and I'm in early childhood. School shootings take place on a school campus and can be done by a student or an intruder. The most infamous school shootings are Chardon, Columbine, and Sandy Hook.
So Columbine, that was mine. It happened April 20th, 1999. And if anybody recognizes that date, that was Saturday. It was the 14-year anniversary of the shooting. Two shooters, or students of Collins-Sibley, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, shot and killed 13 people in the school, 12 students, 1 teacher. And here are the victims. And it's the deadliest school shooting on a high school campus and the 4th deadliest mass shooting. And when I was analyzing this, the interesting part about this is it happened so long ago, so it was very easy to see who had forgiven and who had not, because it had taken time. And the first person I found was Daryl Scott. His daughter, Rachel Scott, was the first person to get killed, and his son, actually Craig, was in the library, and he had to lay in his best friend's blood and pretend to be dead when the shooting went on. But immediately after the shootings, him and his family were interviewed by Maria Shriver. Her ex-husband, I guess, was Arnold Schwarzenegger, and she asked them, she asked how they felt about the two shooters, and then they immediately said that they had chosen to forgive and actually celebrate Rachel's life instead of, living off of anger. And she said she could have never done that. But he also said this, quote, he said, "It really struck our family that Rachel placed such a high emphasis on forgiveness. Our family talked about it, and we decided to forgive and move on and celebrate Rachel's life. A lot of people wouldn't be able to forgive what the boys did to my daughter, but I tell people now what I said then. I would not have pardoned Eric and Dylan, but I forgave them. My daughter would not have wanted Eric and Dylan to ruin our lives because of unforgiveness. In fact, she was the one that told us to forgive." After the shooting, they found her diaries about 2 weeks later, and in them, she talked all about forgiveness and her relationship with God. So after that, Daryl Scott started touring America talking about forgiveness and about what he's gone through. And then two other families, there was the father of Isaiah Scholes, who was the only black student killed, and Michael Scholes is his name. He sued the sheriff's department and the community $250 million because he felt like they were fostering racist beliefs, because when Dylan and Eric went to the library, they yelled out, "Where's that N-word?" And then they shot and killed Isaiah Scholes, and that's who actually Craig was laying next to. And it took him a while to forgive the shooters, but he still does not forgive the community. Him and his family actually moved to Texas now because they couldn't be around them anymore. And then the next one is Tom Mauser. His son, Daniel, was also killed. He immediately after also travels around the country now, but he forgave. But now he travels around the country speaking out about gun control. And he went to a rally that was 2 weeks later in Columbine after the shooting, or in Denver. But he also was the one, him, the Mauser family, and the Scott family were both immediately forgiving. And then this is Patrick Ireland. I bet you guys have seen this picture. It's pretty common. He was called the boy in the window. And he was shot 2 times in the head and once in the foot. And he was unconscious about 3 hours after the shooting. And then he crawled to the window a little bit later, and that's what happened. He went through major brain surgeries, multiple, and once he woke up, his mother asked him, she was like, "Did you know the 2 shooters?" And he immediately says, "It doesn't matter, they were confused. Please forgive them. Please forgive them." And he went back to school when they opened it again about 3 months later, and he forgave them right away too, because he understood that they were going through a lot of trauma. And then here's some other pictures, just of the turmoil. And that's Cassie Burnell's family. She was the one, well, there's kind of a mix-up, but she was the one, "Do you believe in God?" And she said yes, and then they shot her. But there's been some confusion because there's also a girl called Valerie Scher who said the same thing, they thought, but this was their memorial for all the families. And next we have Chardon.
Alright, so Chardon, on February 27, 2012, TJ Lane walked into Chardon High School and he shot 10 rounds of ammunition. He killed 3 students, Daniel Parmenter, age 16, Russell King, age 17, and Demetrius Hewlin, age 16. Nick Walzak was hit in the cheek, arm, neck, and back, but he survived. And he was paralyzed for a little bit. I'm pretty sure he recovered from it. And then Nate Mueller, he was barely nicked in the ear. Lane, recently we found out that he was charged with 3 sentences for life, and that was on March 19th. I'm pretty sure a bunch of you guys saw the YouTube video of his statements, his final statement, where he said some profanity. He wore a shirt that said killer, and he flicked off the victims' families. I think this case is very similar to Claire Schroeder's from the beginning of the semester, the documentary, because along with Columbine and Sandy Hook here, because these people are dying and the families have to come to terms with how they should forgive and what they should do about it. And like what Claire Schroeder said, she said, I can't forgive because it was my father who died, and there's no way for me to forgive if he's the one that's dead. So I relate that really closely to Claire Schroeder's situation. But when I was looking into the case and everything, Demetrius's mother came out and said that she forgave TJ. She said that he was confused and he didn't know what he was doing and he didn't understand what he was doing. And she also believes that God had a purpose in taking Demetrius' life. If that was God's purpose, she had to live with that. Like Sam said, I am going to be a middle school teacher eventually, once I get my degree and everything. And this comes really close to me because middle school is pivotal years for kids, and whether they go down the wrong path or the right path, and just acquiring skills to be able to know what these students are going through and building trust with them. And after you build that trust, you have to figure out whether or not am I going to have to break it in order to save someone, or is this enough to keep with myself? So I think that these school shootings are really close to me, and I'm going to have to figure out ways to deal with kids and everything. And again, this was very recent, so there's not much coming out about forgiving and with the families and everything, but as a community, Chardon really came together, and the communities around them really came together to help them out in their loss and their grieving. So next we have Sandy Hook.
Okay. Sandy Hook Elementary School is in Newtown, Connecticut, and it's a close-knit community of less than 27,000. On December 14, 2012, their community changed forever. Prior to the start of the school year, Principal Don Hoshbun implemented a new security system where the doors would be locked right at 9:30, so they would have to allow someone into the school. But that didn't stop Adam Lanza. Around 9:30 on December 14th, he showed up at Sandy Hook, and the doors were already locked. But he had a semi-automatic AR-15 assault rifle, a Glock pistol, as well as a Sig Sauer pistol. Since the doors were locked, he just shot his way into the school and made his own entrance. He first took the lives of the school psychologist and the principal before heading towards the kindergarten and first grade classrooms. The first classroom had a substitute teacher, and all 14 children lost their lives. Next, he entered the classroom of Victoria Soto. She had hidden all of her students to the best of her ability, but she, along with 6 of her students, lost their lives. Once Lanza had enough, he took his own life inside Sandy Hook Elementary School. Before heading to the school, he also shot his mother at her home, and all of the guns he used were registered to her. On December 14, 2012, 26 and 7-year-olds and lost their lives, as well as 6 adults who were trying to save their students. Many people within and outside of the community began asking questions of gun control, questions about how someone could do this, as well as questions of how the families would be able to forgive been 4 months since the second deadliest school shooting in the United States history, so not many families have spoken out, but one family did almost immediately. Emily Parker was 6 years old and she lost her life, but her father offered their condolences to the shooter's family as well because they realized that it had to be a hard time for them as well. But no one will ever understand what possessed Adam Lanza to go into Sandy Hook Elementary School, but we do know that the families are doing their best to forgive and move on.
So the main question is, did they forgive? And in the case of Columbine, most of the families have since it's been 4 years. And because of the recency of Chardon and Sandy Hook, it's hard to tell if everybody will forgive. And that's why it was interesting to study Columbine, because you could see that sooner or later the families will come to forgiveness. So our question was, to what extent is forgiveness attainable in school shootings? And what we think is yes, but it takes a long time for the families to deal with all the pain they're going through.
And it's not only the tragedy of losing their kids, it breaks down the whole community. The school, people inside, they don't feel safe anymore, and they have to try and build that back up. So it's not only forgiving the shooter, but forgiving the shooter for what they did to the community.
So the question is, could you forgive?